32 seasons is a ton of time to generate plenty of emotions, and The Simpsons is a show that has done just that. With its original intent on being to attack the overly happy and cheesy sitcom format of its predecessors, it comes as no surprise that the show has delved into some very dark territory. Putting aside the Treehouse of Horror episodes for now, as that would make it all too easy, I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most disturbing episodes of The Simpsons. Number 10. Alone Again Natra Diddley. The Simpsons very rarely deals with the concept of death, despite running for such a long time. Therefore, the one that occurs in the episode Alone Again Natra Diddley is incredibly out of left field. This episode starts with the Simpsons discovering an oval racing track built around a bird sanctuary, and upon entering find that Ned and his adoring family are there. Soon after, a t-shirt cannon appears, and Homer forcibly requests one but ducks to pick up a bobby pin as it fires towards him, thus resulting in the package colliding with Maud Flanders and causing her to tragically fall to her death. The moment is so out of the blue and is shown in a surprising amount of detail. But the death of this regular character isn't the only disturbing thing about the episode, as soon we see the devout Ned Flanders completely crumble and lose his faith. This feels incredibly uncomfortable, as religion is how Ned's character has always found its base. There is also the disturbing realization that comes from the fact that Homer Simpson is partly responsible for manslaughter, adding a thoroughly horrifying implication for the otherwise innocent character. Number 9. Lisa's First Word. Lisa's First Word is one of the most endearing episodes of The Simpsons. It tells the story of Lisa's arrival into the Simpson family and the strange dynamic between her and her older brother, culminating in an incredibly heartfelt climax where the young girl's first word is Bart. So with an episode this sweet, what constitutes its position on a most disturbing episodes list? Well, it comes from the terrifying nightmare fuel that is the bed Homer builds for Bart. Those who have a phobia of clowns likely find this to be very difficult to sit through, as Homer creates a clown-shaped bed for his son and the young boy is utterly terrified of it. And honestly, who can blame him? The scare here is visceral and real, thanks to the fact that every viewer has likely had a similar experience in childhood. The imagination of a child often takes inanimate objects and turns them into the stuff of nightmares, and this episode perfectly encapsulates that feeling of dread and powerlessness that children have when something scares them. All together now, if you should die before you wake. No thanks. Number 8. Some Enchanted Evening. There are very few things in the world more disturbing than having your place of domestic safety invaded by a hostile threat. This episode fully explored this concept and was an early indicator of the dark material that this cartoon series would deal with. Some Enchanted Evening was designed to be the first episode of the inaugural season of the show, but thanks to an animation error, it was forcibly delayed. Eventually, it was released as the 13th and final episode of season 1. It tells the story of Bart and Lisa left alone with a babysitter after Marge and Homer go out for a romantic night of fun. Eventually, while watching TV, the children uncover from a real-life crime show that their babysitter is in fact a dangerous criminal, and after finding out that her cover is blown, she ties them up. But thankfully, the tables are fully turned as the villain of the piece is handled well by the children. That is until Homer unwittingly releases them into the world, never knowing when they'll strike again. It's a dreadful idea and a really well-made episode, and as such, the domestic horror feels palpable. Number 7. Brother from the Same Planet. This episode is a general outing that delves into the relationship between Homer and his son Bart. It is mostly inoffensive, save for one scene that jumps fully into pure body horror and disturbing imagery. The moment itself comes out of nowhere but exists as a cathartic sequence for Bart. After Homer is late to pick up his son from soccer practice, we see a real strain on one of the most enjoyable dynamics of the show. The lovable rogue is left out in the rain, and when his father finally gets him, he is justifiably full of anger and disappointment. This results in a sequence that sees Bart imagining his father's face melting off as the trees in the background of the shot burn horribly. It's a genuinely horrendous image with pure hellish depictions of gore, and as such is utterly disconcerting. What makes it scarier is the fact that it's bred of a valid emotional moment, as rather than merely existing for shock value, the sequence highlights the extent to which Homer has soured his relationship with Bart. Number 6. Selma's Choice. Selma's Choice is the 13th episode of season 4 and focuses on one of the lesser characters of the show in the form of Marge's sister Selma. Seeing this small supporting character take a significant seat in the narrative is interesting, but leads to a sequence that, like the previous entry, completely takes you by surprise. In the episode, Selma decides that she wants to have a child to guarantee that she doesn't die alone like great Aunt Gladys. The runtime thus follows her attempts to find a decent suitor and culminates with a tragic sequence that sees her trying to take care of Bart and Lisa. She takes the pair to Duff Gardens, and after ingesting some of the water from a ride, Lisa begins to hallucinate. The things she sees are truly shocking to the core, and eventually she runs off. Losing one of the children and seeing Bart get stuck on a roller coaster is terrible enough, but the horrifying imagery of how Lisa Lisa's delusions are animated quickly makes this one of the most disconcerting episodes. Number 5. Dial N for Nerder. As stated earlier, The Simpsons does not deal with death regularly. Although the demise of the character in question was a misunderstanding, this episode still takes an unbelievably morbid approach to the subject matter. Dial N for Nerder depicts the events of Bart and Lisa attempting to cover up the supposed manslaughter of fellow schoolchild Martin. When encountering him at a national park, Bart plays a prank on him which results in the young boy tumbling onto a small ledge on a cliff. Upon trying to retrieve him with a stick, Lisa accidentally pushes him off and he plummets. The two are rightfully convinced that they have killed the boy, and the rest of the episode revolves around the guilt they feel. One of the darker aspects also centres on Bart's desire to go to the police, but Lisa convincing him to keep it a secret. This is thoroughly out of character for her and switches the dynamic of Bart as the troublemaker and Lisa being the sensible moral sibling. Although of course it is revealed that Martin survived, this episode is still easily one of the most disturbing occurrences in The Simpsons canon. Number 4. The Blunder Years. Homer is a character who is mostly very lovable. Although the later version of the role feels like a pale comparison to his earlier self, he still emits a lot of the innocent and goofy energy that made him a star. Thanks to this, the idea of seeing him experience trauma is thoroughly uncomfortable, and episode 5 of season 13 fully exploits this. The Blunder Years shows Homer taking the family to Pimento Grove to watch some performers. At this event, he is hypnotised by an act named Mesmerino and put into a trance that uncovers a horrifying repressed memory. This leads to him experiencing a traumatic breakdown and struggling not to scream constantly. Eventually, it's revealed that this trauma came after Homer discovered the corpse of a deceased man when swimming in the old quarry. The body is animated in gruesome detail, with maggots and exposed bone making it horrifyingly visceral. We learn that the body was in fact Waylon Smithers' father, who sacrificed himself to stop a meltdown at the power plant. Nothing spells disturbing like an innocent character uncovering his traumatic memories and finding out that a close relative to one of the most notable supporting characters died in agony. Number 3. The Mysterious Voyage of Homer. This episode is a thoroughly peculiar outing for the show and delves into very unpredictable territory. While the concept is grounded by a focus on Homer and Marge's marriage, it uses some outlandish methods to explore it. Homer attends a local chili cook-off with a request from Marge to avoid alcohol thanks to the embarrassment he suffered the year prior. After proving himself to be able to handle a devilish amount of heat, he tries a Guatemalan insanity pepper and experiences extreme pain. He soothes this with a ton of beer, much to Marge's dismay. Eventually, Homer works out that if he coats his mouth with wax, he can swallow plenty of the peppers without trouble. However, this results in him dramatically hallucinating and going into a strange world full of giant butterflies, dazzling imagery, and a talking space coyote voiced by Johnny Cash. This causes plenty of strain between him and Marge, as she believes alcohol is responsible, and after the coyote tells Homer he must find his soulmate, the two discover that they may not be as compatible as they thought. And the drama in their marriage is one thing, but it's the wild animation of the fantasy land that takes this episode into disturbing territory. Number 2. My Sister, My Sitter. This episode packs a truly disturbing punch since it primarily centres around the siblings Bart and Lisa. Seeing the awful things that happen and knowing that it's two children who suffer makes this outing quickly one of the most uncomfortable episodes for the hit Fox show. My Sister, My Sitter focuses on Lisa Simpson experiencing a boom in her babysitting business. After Marge and Homer are invited to attend an event, they put Lisa in charge of Bart, much to his dismay. In response, he acts out childishly, feeding coffee ice cream to Maggie and putting plenty of stress upon his sister. Eventually, she lunges at him in anger and causes him to fall down the stairs. This dislocates Bart's shoulder and gives him a large bump on his head. Lisa is horrified and worried that her reputation as a babysitter will be ruined, and after Bart's condition worsens, she tries desperately to seek medical attention for him. The episode is disturbing thanks mainly to the stress that is placed upon Lisa and the dramatic, uncomfortable lengths she goes to so she can keep her reputation. However, the animation of Bart's injuries are thoroughly disgusting and give the episode some body horror to accompany the sense of impending doom. And number 1, Bart Sells His Soul. Bart Sells His Soul will always rank as one of the best episodes that the show has ever produced. It's dark, hilarious, thought-provoking, but most of all disturbing. The episode begins with a large-scale prank from Bart at church, which leads to him and Milhouse being forced to clean an organ together. After discussing the existence of souls, Milhouse offers to purchase Bart since he doesn't believe in them. After he agrees, his life soon takes a downward tumble as he is struck with bad luck, cannot laugh, and is plagued by some hauntingly dark dreams. The episode masterfully blends tones as it shows the depths of anxiety and regret that Bart experiences through his actions in the real world and the events depicted in his nightmares. The combination of his desperation and sadness puts tons of pressure on the young boy and makes the events of the outing tough to sit through. Thankfully, things do end well for him, but the the episode leads you down a rabbit hole of anxiety as you fear not only for his sanity, but his possible damnation. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. What's the most disturbing moment in Simpsons history for you? Make sure that you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to whatculture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for What Culture, and have a good week.